know what? Let me see if this works. Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. The conversation is, do we want to do some hypnosis? Do we want to learn about body language? And I wonder with you guys.
Yes. Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
right? A little bit of everything, right? And it's interesting, too, because when people think about hypnosis, kind of like you're saying, you're expecting the little swing the watch and all those kind of different things. It really doesn't work like that. Somebody says, what is hypnosis? Well, if there's been that moment you've ever been driving down the road and you get home and you're like, I don't really remember driving. Yeah? Or that moment you get lost in a book or a television show and it feels like 10 minutes has gone by, but it's been an hour. That's hypnosis. People are like, oh, I never let that happen. That never happens to me. Tell me, where do I experience hypnosis? You ever get in an elevator?
Yeah.
What happens when you get in the elevator? Come on, right? You're having a conversation. Oh, yeah, this is great. You get in the elevator. It's like, nobody says anything. Nobody looks at each other, just kind of staring at the numbers. Please, God, open. Please, God, open. Please, God, open. Let me get out of here. Right? And it's one of these things where we slip into these patterns very, very quickly. We all know we got that conscious mind, we got that unconscious mind. And what happens sometimes is that sometimes there's a little disconnection right there. And when I say that, I mean this. In the sense of, if there's ever been something you've wanted to do in life that you know you can do, quit smoking, lose weight, speak in front of a crowd or a group, whatever it might be, but yet there's that thing that kind of blocks you from doing that, right? You got the education, you got the knowledge, you got the experience, you know what to do, but you get up there to, purple, I like purple, right? And it doesn't make any sense. But sometimes that's that little disconnect that happens. So what I do with hypnosis is I help people to get past that barrier, right? Through this natural process that we go into every single day. Now that's something that works for personal lives, that's something that works for business as well in a very powerful way. In business, clear, concise communication is hypnosis. When you have that client and they see you and you're talking to them and they can feel that experience. My realtor's in the house, where are you? One? In this size of room? Okay, realtors. When you start talking about, imagine walking into that house with your family, the sound of that door as it opens up, the smell of that house when you first walk in, those kind of things are connecting on that level, on that unconscious level, it connects with that. So those are the words we begin to use. If you're talking about your business, your product, whatever it might be, understanding that, yes, it's nice to talk about what our products can do and how professional and all this kind of stuff, but there's something about what's the benefit to them, right? How does it begin to change their life? How does it solve that problem, whatever it might be? So, we can do some fun stuff. You all want to have some fun?
Yes.
Yeah? Come on! Yeah, okay. I was like, oh my goodness, he's going to make me clip like a chicken. No, please no. I charge extra for that. So here's what I'm going to have to do for a moment. If you wouldn't mind, everyone have some fun. Here's what we're going to do. Put your hands out just like this, please. Come on, let's have some fun. It's like, oh no. I'm going to have you take your hands, put them together like this, please. Squeeze those palms nice and tightly. In a moment, not yet, in a moment, I'm going to have you extend your 2 index fingers like this. Not yet. When you do, I want you to focus right in the middle of those fingers, and I want you to imagine that there's a magnet on both of those fingers. Those fingers will just draw nice and closely, easily together. Not a problem, right? Squeeze nice and tight. And when I say focus on your fingers, not somebody else's fingers. Squeeze nice and tightly, extend those fingers out. Focus right in the middle and notice those magnets just begin to draw closer and closer and closer. As they draw closer and closer, when they touch, just let them fall down to the side. Again, let those things draw closer and closer and closer. Some people are like, mine's broken, it's not working. Just let it draw closer and closer. Good, give yourself a round of hand. There you go. So there's a couple things there. One, you have a little bit of hypnosis, but also you have your neurology, right? If you want to go mess with your kids, or your friends, or your spouse, or whoever, just be like, put your hands together, squeeze like, they should come together, naturally. You did have a moment of hypnosis, though. That moment when you focused right in the middle, you kind of forgot where you were, didn't you? You weren't thinking about the bills or the car, the job, the people around you, those kind of things. You were just there in that moment. So that's part of how that hypnosis works. It takes that attention that's going 1,000,000 miles an hour, ladies, right? And goes, whoosh. How nice is that? It just quiets it down for a moment, and it allows that natural process to happen. She's still got her fingers. Good job. Now, for those who might have been like, nope, which I've had, sometimes that comes from not understanding enough or not fear or whatever it might be. Maybe tonight's just not the night for you. But I'm going to tell you something. It works for everyone. And hypnosis is this process that we can just fall into very easily to make those changes we want to make. You want some more fun?
Yes.
Okay. Yay. Here's what I want you to do. If you're comfortable with this, please. Everybody take a nice deep breath in. Hold it for a moment. And let it go. Oh yeah, y'all are good. If you could, please take both your hands, put them up just like this, please. That right hand, flip it over. Some of y'all confused. This is this is the left hand. I got ya. All right. All right. So what I want you to do, keep those up. Nice deep breath in. And this time, as you exhale, let those eyes close down to a nice, comfortable place, and let them stay closed. For just a moment now, I want you to begin to think about that hand that's flipped over, and I want you to begin to imagine for just a moment, what if there was balloons tied to that hand? And I want you to begin to imagine, have you ever seen that movie Up? Red, blue, green, purple, pink, all of those different color balloons attached to that wrist, or to that hand. And I want you to begin to imagine for a moment, what if it just began to lift and rise? Imagine what that string would feel like around your wrist as it began to lift and rise. And notice that sensation just as easy as it begins to happen, as it begins to lift and rise. It's a very simple process. Now on the other hand, I want you to begin to imagine for a moment, what if there was a bucket connected to that? You know what I mean? One of those big heavy buckets. And I want you to imagine for a moment, what if there was some sand and some water in that other hand, and it just got heavier and heavier. Notice one side gets heavier, but the other one gets lighter. One's heavy, one's lighter, one's heavy, one's lighter. And just notice that process, notice that process. And for just a moment, let those eyes open and take a look at your hands. Very good. Excellent job. Round of applause, please. So again, a couple things happen there. Our minds are extremely powerful. And here's what I mean by that. Consider for a moment that we can hear and think and see and smell and taste and touch things that aren't there. If for a moment, if I said a lemon, how many people can begin to taste that lemon? Right? Our brains are extremely powerful. And it sounds a little weird, but they don't really know the difference between imagination and reality. What does that mean? I literally had a lady come into my office, and if you mention flying to her, she starts breathing heavy, she starts sweating, she starts almost shaking as if she was there on an airplane. And there's no airplane, right? Now that's an extreme situation if you think about her and flying, but let's consider us for a moment. If you consider the things that we get worked up about, right? The bill comes in, what am I going to do if I fail this presentation, whatever it might be. And that begins to happen with us physically. We start to feel that and begin to experience that. You are automatically putting yourself into that hypnotic state. Make sense? Yes. Somebody's completely worked up, and what happens? Something completely different, right? The unexpected. But that's one of the things that begins to happen with us. Almost like the hands, as they were beginning to move, as you begin to see that, feel that, experience that, that became that bit of a reality for you in that moment. Make sense? Yes. So, now we can have that work for us, or we can have that work against us, right? If I'm worried about it, the bad things and all that stuff, my body's going to begin to react that way. I'm going to feel that way, that stress, that feeling in the chest, the hands shaking, all of that stuff. But if I begin to put myself on that beach, or that comfortable place, wherever it might be, it begins to change that, even in the physicality. Help me with my word, personal trainer. Physicality.
Yes.
There it is. Within our own bodies. We begin to connect with that. Right? Mind, body, kind of the same deal. So let's get that to work for you. Sound good so far?
Yes.
Y'all having fun?
Yes.
Kind of weird?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so that's a little bit about the hypnosis. Now what do we want to talk about? How about some business stuff?